My name is Ozlem Garibay. I am an assistant professor in industrial engineering and management sciences since fall 2020. And my research interests are applied AI, especially impact on social systems, and also drug discovery, and AI is used for modeling of material design. And in my research group, I have a postdoc, 5 PhDs, three alumni, 3 PhD, 1 master's, and 3 undergrads. I have been teaching human-computer interaction, decision support systems, and also in the MSDA program, a bridge course that's to prepare students for their master's program in programming. Let's see. The quick outline, I'm going to be talking about one of my recent papers with a large number of colleagues that we recently published. It's called 6 Grand Challenges of Human-Centered AI. And then I will talk very briefly about influence modeling. This is a project that was funded by DARPA, and then I will talk very briefly about artificial intelligence assisted drug target discovery. This paper that we published recently, we have large number of collaboration from different institutions across the globe, from North America, Europe and Asia, and you will see some familiar faces: Valdemar Karwowski, Steve Fiore, Joe Kaider, Gabriel Salvandi, Ivan, and myself are from UCF. But then we have a lot of different people from industry, from academia, and government also are represented here as well. So the reason that we wanted to work on this is to understand what are some of the grand challenges when it comes to AI, and what prompted this effort was that the AI technology has become more prominent in many aspects of our lives. And it provided so many advances, but it also brought us out with many challenges, needing to address, but how to overcome these challenges so we can benefit, its advances that try to curb the challenges. And I have listed here, this is not an exhaustive list, of course, that many fields have benefited from AI in healthcare, from, it made it more, more accurate diagnosis, but there are more precise treatment options were made available. But that also, inaccurate diagnosis and treatment recommendations were also an issue. And then there in some of the other areas, criminal justice system, education, finances, and transportation, we see more autonomous, being able to make decisions fast and 24 hours, and without needing the people to be manning some of these systems was a great advance. But then sometimes these decisions were poorly made, and a lot of them, and in a very fast pace, which made the impact larger and bigger. Basically, the idea of this group was to come together and through many meetings and workshops that we organized to attempt to outline these grand challenges. What are the issues that is pertain to AI technology, and which is defined by some as a revolution instead of just an incremental evolution of technology, and on in terms of the impact on society. So these challenges here are to advocate for the human-centered approach to AI that is centered in human well-being, is designed responsibly, respect privacy, follows human-centered design principles, and is subject to appropriate governance and oversight, interacts with individuals while respecting humans' cognitive abilities. I will briefly go over these challenge areas as time permits. So the human well-being, before defining what we mean by human well-being, let's try to define what makes AI unique when it comes to human well-being. The characteristics to highlight that particularly set AI apart as technologies are higher levels of automation and over and underestimation of those automations, what it can do and what it cannot. Self-driving cars is a good example of that. Lack of transparency, explainability, which makes it difficult to understand the reasoning and know what to expect from the system. And evolvability, ever-evolving nature of their behavior is another concern. And the limitation in integrating human values. It is not always possible to express ethical or moral values as mathematical constructs. These concepts are inherently social constructs and often very complex and vary by region, population, and changes over time. There are some limitations to express these values within these systems that are making decisions based on and that should be based on human values. So going back to core concepts of human well-being, first and foremost is do no harm. Above all, designers, engineers, regulators must aim to prevent harm caused by AI implementations that lack the human-centered approach. And ability to establish appropriate levels of trust. AI must be able to calibrate their trust effectively and through both a high level of certifications and interface level affordances, and clear delegation of moral and legal accountability. The impact of AI on risks, responsibilities, accountability must be explicitly considered and addressed. Maintaining human agency, users must be able to evaluate, control these systems, complex tools, even though they don't have a full and complete understanding of it. And paying full attention to the trade-offs between user experience and new capabilities. And this needs to be evaluated very carefully. And broader understanding of human priorities in many levels as we are optimizing for these different multiple priorities in multiple different levels. So ultimately, the piece of user must not be changed for the power of new capabilities. Because oftentimes our commitment to automation and commitment to beating human intelligence tend to override some of these core principles. And there are many anecdotal examples of how AI without proper accountability, agency, trust could cause harm. And in one of these anecdotes, it talks about a patient that was unable to receive proper pain treatment due to AI algorithm suggestion that the patient had a high risk for overdose. And of course, with little ability to evaluate AI's decision and desire to prevent overdose, the physicians generally accept these recommendations. And in this case, it was left to a patient to confront AI company and ultimately discovering that the algorithm had been skewed by prescription made for the patient's dog. In this case, both the risk of AI's harm and the work to remediate that was shifted to patient, which is paradoxically the entity with the least agency. So these type of issues with decision support systems are not isolated cases. There are many of them, and with widespread impact on society. So in the light of these principles, we have provided research directions and recommendations to the stakeholders, and for each challenge areas, before going for that, I want to kind of very quickly we group these stakeholders in three broad categories: researchers, developers, business leaders, and policymakers. And we have a number of recommendations in the paper. I will just mention a few here as time permits. So as a research direction, we think that it's necessary to study HCAI, how HCAI can promote harm avoidance, trust, accountability, agency, user well-being, and multi-optimization of human priorities. And we call upon developers to aim to protect human attention and mindfulness, and support and expand human cognitive capacities. And we also call upon the business leaders to support healthy human emotion management, and policymakers to provide legal and policy frameworks to ensure transparency, accountability, and fair outcomes in these systems. Here, there are more in the paper in terms of these recommendations for different stakeholders. Responsible AI. So how do we define responsible AI? There are many takes on that, and oftentimes overlapping. In our work, we define responsible AI as consisting of 4 components: moral and legal accountability and liability, explainability and transparency, ethics and fairness. In the context of responsible design of AI, accountability refers to assurance of proper functioning of such systems by organizations, individuals, and who are involved in the development, deployment, and use and governance of these systems. And accountability should be considered in every stage of AI lifecycle, beginning with data collection, creation, and system design to use deployment and use. When it comes to explainability, understanding the system's objectives, constraints, limitations, data sources, and biases may help build trust and confidence towards these systems, which requires different levels of information exchange depending on the user and the context of the usage. Measures and processes need to be incorporated and maintained throughout the AI development and use lifecycle. Ethical deployment of autonomous systems is more challenging than the previous concepts with regards to responsibility attribution. For example, although some industries have safety regulations, the technology itself has no regulations and leaving moral concerns in assigning responsibility. When AI systems are decision makers, the requirements for decisions to be considered ethical are predetermined by designers, engineers, which are probably not in the very best position to make these decisions given the holistic nature of these concepts. Fairness is both societal and ethical concept, which is subjective depending on the context. Thus, it's not a trivial task to form a unified definition of fairness. In the context of decision-making, fairness can be defined as an absence of bias towards one individual or a group based on their inherent and acquired characteristics that are irrelevant to the context of the decision. There are so many examples of how AI can be responsible. many of you are probably familiar with issues with systems such as Compass that that was used in the criminal justice system to assess the risk of repeat offense for inmates, or college admission systems, or job HR systems for hiring. The basic automation of decision making with some biased outcomes, right? One more recent relevant example is the generative AI tools such as GPT. There was a fair amount of news coverage and excitement regarding this technology and its capabilities, but there are also quite a bit of less exciting and more concerning news about their ability to generate misinformation and when released in high speed. This misinformation of such speed was characterized as a tsunami of misinformation in the news. This has been a challenge to regulators and big tech in the past, but now we are facing it with in a much larger volume and faster. There were, of course, some immediate measures taken by some companies, but so much more need to be done in this space.